In all honesty, I think it is quite tasteless and ignorant to pick Jacob Elordi, who is literally the ethnically ambiguous white guy of the year, and cast him as Heathcliff when we all know for a fact that the racism and classism that he experiences as a character is essential to his development. And it's literally quite literally the reason why he becomes a villain. I just think it's tasteless. I just think there's so much talent within the Romani and the Irish traveler community, and you decide to pick an ethnically ambiguous white guy. It's just embarrassing. Hello everyone, this is Darkest Star Reads, and today I want to review Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and also by, probably you have seen it in the title already, I want to tell you guys why I don't think Margot Robbie or Jacob Elordi are actually suited to represent Heathcliff and Catherine. There's a lot that we have to discuss because even though this book seems quite small, there is a lot that we can argue about. So let's start, and yeah, I hope you have fun. As always, starting with the summary for those who haven't read the book, Wuthering Heights is about the Earnshaw family who live in Wuthering Heights, which is an old farmhouse in West Yorkshire, so in the north of England, who basically find out that the patriarch of the family, Earnshaw, has brought an orphan child to the house from one of his trips to Liverpool. Since the start of the book, we see that Heathcliff is different to them, not only because he is an orphan, but also because he is dark-skinned and he has very low class status. He doesn't know how to read, he doesn't behave like the rest of them. Also at the same time, we see how much devotion Earnshaw has towards this child, to the point of literally neglecting his own children, which is Catherine and Hindley. Also at the same time, Earnshaw, apart from having devotion to Heathcliff, to the new orphan child, he also is quite verbally and emotionally abusive to his own children. Maybe because his wife passed away and they remember him of her, or maybe because he's so devoted to this child that he forgets about his own children. Obviously, due to this power imbalance or this significant difference in attention, Hindley, who is the eldest of the biological children, he becomes extremely abusive towards Heathcliff. But obviously, once Earnshaw realizes that Hindley is abusive towards Heathcliff, who is his favorite son, he gets kicked out or he gets sent to university. And 3 years later, after Earnshaw passes away, Hindley becomes the rightful heir and comes back into Wuthering Heights, not only to attend to his new inheritance, but also at the same time to revenge on Heathcliff after everything that he has done, or after all the attention that he has received from his father. So Heathcliff stops being one of the siblings and becomes one of the servants, to the point of him stopping learning how to read or how to become educated and just becoming one of the laborers that they have. At the same time, Catherine, who is Hindley's sister and one of the other biological children of Earnshaw, instead of actually hating Heathcliff, she actually becomes best friends with him, and they will always spend time together in the old farmhouse, or just outside within the moors of West Yorkshire, to the point of them becoming inseparable and them just being naughty children anywhere they go, or just becoming literally the fear of the town. One of these situations, they both travel to the nearest house, which is where the Linton family lives, and just they start spying on them and start being cheeky and naughty and with an accident. Well, an accident happens where Catherine gets bitten by a dog and she needs immediate medical attention, which is offered by the Linton family, except Heathcliff is kicked out because he is an orphan child and because he is not like them. And from that day onwards, Catherine spends more and more time within the Linton family and the two children, Edgar and Isabella, which Heathcliff is not happy about, whereas Hindley, the eldest brother, is extremely happy about it because he knows or he understands that if Catherine spends time with Edgar, who are at the same age more or less, there is a possibility that she ends up marrying him or just basically getting into the family and just basically accepting all the money that the Linton family have because they are extremely wealthy. Over the years, all the children start growing up, and obviously, as predicted by Hindley, Edgar falls in love with Catherine and ends up asking her to marry him, which she has serious doubts about accepting or not, because even though she is interested in Edgar because of all the status that he has and all the monetary power that he has, she actually is in love with Heathcliff, even though she understands that, first of all, she is not like them because he is dark skinned, so he's from another ethnicity, he's a person of color, and also because he has no status whatsoever. He's just a poor orphan child that someone decided to accept. Basically, he is a servant, right? So she struggles between what option she wants to choose or who she wants to follow. And after having a very private conversation with one of the servants, who is Nellie, basically Heathcliff misunderstands the whole conversation and just hears Catherine just talking shit about him, basically, and decides to leave for many years, for around 3 to 5 years, to make a man out of himself, right? And during that time, Catherine decides to marry Edgar, obviously because Heathcliff has disappeared, which makes her really upset. And Hindley, basically, after having no one to abuse, he decides to start abusing his own child. Also because I think he's mentally ill, and also because he's an alcoholic. But anyways, and then 3 to 5 years later, Heathcliff comes back, not only looking like a man, but also with his own fortune and extremely well educated, which Catherine is surprised about. But also Isabella, who is Edgar's sister, becomes suddenly interested in Heathcliff. And this is exactly what Heathcliff planned on the first place. He decided to leave Wuthering Heights and come back some years later because he has sworn revenge. Revenge on Hindley, revenge on all the Linton family, but also to absolutely destroy the name of Wuthering Heights and the name of Earnshaw and the Lintons, because of all the abuse that he has suffered, but also because Edgar has stolen the one thing that he loves most, even more than himself, which is Catherine. Now, I'll go into the discussion because I don't want to spoil you the whole book. But yeah, I want to discuss the characters first because I think they are all extremely interesting, right? First of all, as always, I have my notes over here. So if I don't look at you or I don't stare into your eyes, it's because I have my notes and I'm reading. But yeah, basically, as a psychologist, I think these characters are fascinating because I very clearly see what each character is suffering from, right? I genuinely think that the vast majority of the characters, or all the characters, are mentally ill, severely mentally ill, because like it gets to a point where I can see clear as day what they are suffering, but also at the same time I see all the behaviors that they do because of this mental illness, right? And also because of all the abuse and all the situations that they have to encounter in their lives. But yeah, it's just so clear to me what they are suffering, right? So first of all, the first thing that I have to say is Earnshaw, so the patriarch, I just think he's a dickhead. I think he's an abusive father who basically had children because he had to. And we see it in the way he just like is completely enamored with his wife, but just absolutely neglects his children. But then out of nowhere, he brings an orphan child into Wuthering Heights and just is absolutely devoted to him, even though he is very actively neglecting his children to the point of him becoming emotionally, verbally, and physically abusive. Right? I just think he's a piece of shit. At the end of the day, I think he's an alcoholic. First of all, that's the first thing. But also at the same time, I just think he's abusive. I don't think he has any mental illnesses. I just think he's a piece of shit. Now, something super interesting that I realized when reading the book was the fact that the two siblings, so Hindley and Catherine, even though they have very similar experiences, the way that they evolve or the way that their character develops is completely different. So obviously, if you have read the book, you know that Hindley is the typical narcissist, right? Like we see all his behaviors of narcissism. So obviously we see his insecurity because like he's scared of or he has the fear of not being the heir, and just Heathcliff literally stealing what is rightfully his, right? But we also see how impulsive he is in his behaviors when his ego gets touched, right? Or also at the same time, he's just basically, well, he also has some sort of addiction to obviously drinking and gambling, but more specifically gambling. I see how he literally just gambles, not for the sake of gambling, but just because he doesn't want to lose, right? He just keeps playing because he wants to show Heathcliff that he's winning, right? Or like that he is over him. And also at the same time, it gets to a point where he's just abusive, or he literally continues with the line of abuse because he wants to be like his father. He has this image of his father, of like what he's supposed to be as a man, right? Whereas Catherine, more interestingly, she obviously is not a guy, so therefore she doesn't have the pressure to be like her father or to be the rightful heir of Wuthering Heights, right? But I think she is the perfect example of the DSM-5 symptomatology of BPD, of borderline personality disorder. Like everything she does is literally just BPD coded, right? Because like I see over here, I have a list of all the symptoms that BPD has, just because I don't remember them at the top of my head. But yeah, we see how unstable her relationships are, right? She's always like, I either absolutely love you or I fucking hate you. I don't want to see you ever again. And that is very BPD like. Also at the same time, she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know who she wants. She always has an identity crisis, but also she's incredibly impulsive. So therefore, like, she just goes through the moment and just doesn't even stop herself to think or to, she just acts, right? Also, I see that she has like incredible like recurrent suicidal behavior. She's always saying that like she's gonna die or that she's gonna kill herself because of all the things that people do that like make her suffer, and like even to the point where she stops eating and she stops drinking because like she is so upset that she doesn't want to eat, and she is so proud that she doesn't want to come out because like to her own detriment. That is also very, very manipulative and also very BPD, right? Also we see inappropriate intense anger or difficulty to control anger, and lastly we see how she becomes extremely paranoid of like people's behavior and the way people think about her, and like she's always disassociating. Like we see how like on her last days she's literally just in a disassociate, like she's in her last days she's literally just disassociating. That is so BPD. And Heathcliff, obviously, I cannot forget about him. I think he is a psychopath, or I think he has at least antisocial personality disorder, right? Because like I see how little empathy he has towards people, right? Even to Catherine, like the things that he did or said to Catherine are very like empty of empathy. And like, for example, I see how deceitful he is, that is very psychopathic. Also, he's very impulsive and aggressive, which is very similar to Catherine, but in a different way, because he is aggressive and he is impulsive because of the emotions that he's feeling, which are emotions of rage and emotions of revenge, right? Whereas for Catherine, she does everything that she does impulsively because, like, first of all, she either has a fear of not getting her own way, but also she has a fear of people seeing the way that she actually is instead of the like mask that she has. And then Heathcliff as well, I think the most clear sign is that he has a lack of remorse, right? And he does the worst things, but like he doesn't even regret it, right? Like even on his last days before he passes away, he doesn't feel remorse. He's like, yeah, cool, like I'll go to hell, but like at least I did what I did, right? And like the only remorse that I see from him is the fact that like it's no remorse, it's just apathy. Like he can't be asked to do anything towards Harriton or towards Kathy just because he cannot be asked because he's almost about to die. Also, I'm gonna be super honest, but I think the rest of the characters, so like Mr. Lockwood, for example, I think he's just a pervert. I think Joseph has definitely religious delusions, and Isabella, I think she's just plain old stupid because, like, honestly, it gets to a point where it's like, I don't think you have a problem, or I don't think you have like a mental health issue. I just think you are dumb as hell because, like, how, like, with everything that people are telling you about Heathcliff and how horrible he behaves, how is it possible that you still love him and that you still want to marry him? Like, that is just plain old stupid. Like, your IQ is at wrong temperature, but the temperature is in Celsius, it's not in Fahrenheit. And honestly, I think Edgar Linton is the only sane person in those two houses. And it says a lot because even Edgar is still quite he's over there, like he's not fully sane, right? But the fact that he is the most sane person, wild. The one thing that I also want to mention that I think is really interesting is the fact that every single character has a different mental illness. It's literally like Wuthering Heights is collecting mental illnesses like Pokemon cards, right? Which is like, I think it's fascinating to see the relationship between them as well, right? And the way the different characters and their mental illnesses affect the actions of others or like the behaviors of others, right? And especially when it comes to the cycle of abuse, right? Because how I view it is that like this big, like Wuthering Heights also explains a lot or like shows the cycle of abuse or like the family trauma cycle of abuse, right? Because like we see that the first generation of abuse is definitely Earnshaw, so the patriarch, towards the children, towards Hindley and Catherine, which obviously we see how different their abuse is on the second line of generational trauma or like a cycle of abuse, right? We see how Hindley is just extremely abusive towards Heathcliff just because of all the jealousy and all the daddy issues that he had with his own father, right? Because like at the end of the day, Heathcliff is not at fault for Earnshaw to like have this devotion towards him, right? But that Hindley doesn't really care. Like he doesn't care about that, even though he understands that Heathcliff was a child. He doesn't care because the only thing that he wants is just have revenge on him and just like hate him so badly and just like absolutely torture him to the point of Heathcliff becoming the villain, right? Whereas Catherine, like she is literally the invisible child, right? We see how Heathcliff was the golden child, Hindley was the scapegoat, and then Catherine was the invisible child, where like she just practically didn't exist, right? Like she neither got abused or like got slight abuse or she got absolutely ignored. because like at the end of the day, first of all, she's a woman, so obviously Earnshaw at that time didn't really care about Catherine, because she would just be sent off to marry someone and then nobody cares about her. But also at the same time, it's like we see how this visibleness, right, has made her want to be the center of attention and want to have all the attention on her, which is also very BPD like, right? We see how she struggles to have her identity, or to see who she wants to marry or who she wants to be with. Does she want to feel like, does she want to follow the logic and marry Edgar and show to everyone else how great she is and how powerful and how much money she has, or does she actually want to follow her heart? But like, that's the thing as well. After marrying Edgar, we see that she's literally just in the middle. She wants it all, but like and she also doesn't understand why she can't have it all, right? Like, she wants Edgar to, like, she wants to be married to Edgar, but also she wants to be friends with Heathcliff. And then we see the third ladder of abuse, or the cycle of abuse, which is Harrington, right? Harrington is Hindley's child, who is also abused by his own father, like just exactly like Hindley got abused by his own father, by Earnshaw. But also after Hindley passes away, we see how Heathcliff still uses this abuse, or like still abuses Harrington in the same way that Hindley abused him, just not only because he wants revenge, or not only because he thinks that that is the way that he is gonna get back at Hindley for everything that he's done, but also because it reminds him of all the past experiences that he has had, right? It reminds him of Catherine, or it reminds him of everything that he could have had, but he doesn't, because he is not like them. He doesn't have the status that they have, he doesn't have the money that they have, but also because he is a person of color. And more interestingly, we see that on this last ladder, right, on the third ladder of the cycle of abuse, it is only broken, like this cycle is only broken because Catherine, who is the third generation as well, Kathy, not Catherine, Kathy, who is the third generation as well, she stops the abuse, or she stops the cycle of abuse, and makes Harrington be himself and be a good person, because she hasn't been abused, because she grew up with a loving father who is Edgar, which wild, but yeah, she is the one that stops the cycle of abuse and the cycle of hatred and revenge, because she is the only one that has experienced true love from a father, from a parent, which the rest of them haven't. So therefore, they just keep repeating the cycle until someone stops it. And this is the thing though, like everything starts because he is not like them, right? And not like them means that he's a person of color and that he's an orphan. And like, I don't think being an orphan is that important for them, because at the end of the day, no one calls him like bastard or things like that. They literally insult him with being uneducated, with being dark skinned or looking like a gypsy, right? Which is a slur that people use to refer to Romani and Irish travelers. And also at the same time, they literally constantly tell him that he is extremely ugly because he's dark skinned, or because he has ethnic features, right? So in this sense, for me, it's like, I think that everything else does not matter. So the fact that he has no status does not matter, or the fact that he has no money, no one gives a shit about it. What they care about is the fact that he's not like them because he's a person of color, right? We see how Hindley literally uses him as a servant, not only because he wants revenge on him, which obviously it makes sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, I don't excuse it, but yeah, that is how he practices revenge on him, but also because he literally tells him that like his ethnicity, or he should be used to this because his people are made to, or like are created to be servants, right? And also the reason why Catherine doesn't want to marry him is because he's a person of color. It's because she knows exactly that no matter what she does, or no matter how much effort he puts, he will always be a person of color and he will always be despised, right? We see it when he goes to the town or when he meets the Lintons. No one gives a shit about him because he's a person of color. And also we see how even Ellen, I think Ellen or Nellie, yeah, we see how Nellie, who grew up with him, at first she enjoys his company and she thinks that he is a lovely child, but the more he grows up and the more person of color like he looks like, then the more she despises him, just because like she realizes, like she starts understanding this racism and the fact that this is something that she has to do as a white person, right? So obviously taking into account how important race is in like everyone's behaviors against Heathcliff and how much racism and classism he suffers because of his ethnicity, it makes absolutely no sense for me to see basically Jacob Elordi being cast as Heathcliff, because as much research as I have done, and taking into account that I am not 23andMe, so therefore I can't know for sure, okay, as much research as I have done, Jacob Elordi is Australian, okay, and his dad is from the Basque Country, which is very, very fucking close to Spain. So I think I know a thing or two about the Basque Country, and let me tell you, because like this is the one thing that really pisses me off, okay? So the Basque Country is a really small region around Spain, okay? There are people that argue that the Basque Country is part of Spain. There are people that don't. I would just separate it out of respect of my Basque friends, and also at the same time because I am from Catalonia, which is which is a region in Spain, and we also have a similar history or tumultuous history with Spain. So I will separate the Basque Country from Spain just out of respect. But yeah, basically the Basque Country is an autonomous community within Spain, and it is, first of all, it is really, really tiny, right? They have their own culture, they have their own traditions, they have their own language, which is Euskera, and basically, first of all, they don't consider themselves Spanish, but I've been looking at the census, so I just looked around the census. I spent hours over there, okay? I looked at the stats, and basically, I think it's around 12,500 people from the Basque Country consider themselves Romani citizens, or like Romani of Romani ethnicity. I haven't seen any data about Irish travelers, so I assume that the population in the Basque Country of Irish travelers is very, very minimal. But yeah, basically only 12,500 people from the Basque Country consider themselves Romani. If I take into account how many people there are in Euskadi or in the Basque Country in general, which is 2.2 million people, that if you divide the amount of Romani people by the amount of Basque or people that live within the Basque Country, that makes 0.06% of the population of the Basque Country of Euskadi that are actually or identify as Romani, or at least the people that have been censored, right? I can't know for sure because not everyone gets censored in Spain. It is quite unique situation. The Romani population has a quite unique situation in Spain, which in the vast majority of cases is quite shit, but I'm not going to talk about that because I could talk about this for hours. But yeah, basically only 0.06% of the population in the Basque Country is Romani, or at least identifies as Romani, right? So if I think about it, the chances of his dad being of Romani descent are really, really slim. It could be, and if it is, I will personally apologize to Jacob Elordi. Well, not personally because he probably doesn't give a shit about me, but like I will publicly apologize. But the chances of his father being of Romani descent and being from the Basque Country are really slim, right? So his father, he is from the Basque Country, and his grandparents as well, they emigrated to Australia when his father was 8 years old, right? So he's been in Australia for quite a long time, even though he is still Basque, right? Like he is still from Euskadi. And the one thing is like, obviously, there are traditions and there are parts of culture and languages that are or that are what's the name, that he can, like, that he might have passed on to Jacob, but also at the same time, this is the one thing that really pisses me off, and is the fact that, like, I think that many people view him now as like this ethnically ambiguous guy, right? When first of all, the vast majority of the people that live in the Basque Country or in Euskadi, they are white. Like, the vast majority of people that live in the Basque Country and that live in everywhere in Spain or in the Iberian Peninsula are white. No matter how you put it, the vast majority of us are white. So yeah, very quickly as a summary, I don't think Jacob Elordi should be casted as Heathcliff because Heathcliff is a person of color. We don't know exactly where he is from, but yet there are a lot of actors and artists that are people of color or that are of Romani Irish traveler descent who should be casted as Heathcliff. Even one of the actors was casted as Heathcliff before, and I just don't understand why we decide to pick the white guy of the month or the white guy of the year just because, like, he looks ethnically ambiguous, right? Just because you have dark hair or like dark color eyes or just because you have massive eyebrows, that doesn't mean that you should get casted into a person of colors, like as a character that is a person of color, right? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I understand that he is incredibly talented, that he is quite attractive as well. I just don't think it makes sense, and I think it's quite disrespectful towards towards people of color in general and the community, right? Because there are so many great people that could play Heathcliff and that would make justice to the character. That is all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. So sorry for the rant that I had in the last 10 minutes, but yeah, I thought it was needed. And also at the same time, please support all the actors that I have mentioned in the list. They are incredibly talented. And also please read Wuthering Heights. It is incredible. Everyone is fucking crazy, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think it is entertaining as AF, basically. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching again. If you want to follow me on my social media, we can discuss about Wuthering Heights, or we can discuss more about the topic or other topics that you might enjoy. If you have an opinion about Wuthering Heights, if you liked it or not, please put it in the comments as well. I would love to hear your opinion about it. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye, guys.